Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be sharing all of my thoughts and 3 looks using the new Icy Nude. That is correct. Where I'm going to be sharing 3 looks and all of my thoughts on the new Icy Nude palette from Huda Beauty, including this one that I'm rocking on my eyeballs right now. So if you're interested in whether I think that this stands out among the holiday releases that are raining down upon us right now, does it stand out? Is it worth grabbing? Is it worth our money? Is it worth picking up even in the Sephora sale that I think is currently ongoing in the US? I will be sharing all of my thoughts on this and letting you know how I feel about her, as well as those 3 very easy to copy if you have this at home already looks for you. So without further ado, let's get started. This is going to be the very last large palette from Huda Beauty, which I am really sad about. I don't know why. I don't understand it, because I feel like these are her best palettes. I far prefer these to the Obsessions palettes, and I feel like these are so popular. I don't understand what's happening, but I know that Huda, she's not silly, okay? She knows what she's doing. She's a very savvy business lady. I know she knows what she's doing, so I'm intrigued as to what she's up to. What does she mean, this is the last large palette? I know she's just not going to be doing Obsessions from now on. I can't imagine we're just going to the Obsessions. I can't imagine it. So I feel like she's up to something and it's going to be even better than these. I hope that's the case. I'm sure that we can't just be moving to like duos or something. I don't understand it. But this is going to be the last palette of this nature as we know it, according to the brand. So that's really sad, because I've always thought that this was one of her best products. I don't understand, but I hope it's for the better. I trust you, Huda. I know you know what you're doing. So this is the Icy Nude palette. It will set you back £62 or $69, and it features 18 shades of ultra pigmented shadows and innovative textures for fiercely confident looks. Inside this palette, you will find 1 duochrome metallic, 1 biodegradable glitter, 2 triochrome formulas, 3 foil shimmers, and 11 velvety mattes. And I hope that this adds up to 18. If not, I've made a mistake somewhere. It is made in Italy and it has a shelf life of 24 months and of course is cruelty free as per Huda's brand in general. So that is all of the info, all of the tea on paper about this palette. Let's take a look at some swatches and then dive straight into the 3 looks that I have started off my journey with this palette. So let's dive into it, shall we? Okay, so those are my first 3 looks with this palette. Now I have been playing with this for a couple of days while I was on holiday, and of course I've swatched it and I have got the feel of every single shadow in here. I used almost all of the shades in here among these 3 looks today. The only 2 shades I didn't use are Platinum, which is the silver on the top row, and Bling, of course, because this is that biodegradable glitter. I won't be using that on my eyes, okay? I don't like that shadow at all. I have played with it, I have swatched it. It feels like grains of sand. Like even just running my finger over it and doing swatches, it felt like I was exfoliating my hand, exfoliating my arm where I was swiping the shadow. I don't want to do that to my very delicate eyelid skin. There's just nothing about it that makes me want to put it on my eyes. I wish it wasn't in there. I feel like it's a complete waste of a pan. I imagine, I don't want to speak for everybody, okay? I realise people have different opinions to me. I know that to be the case because you tell me about it all the time. So I am sure, I'm convinced in fact, that there will be people who like that shade, but I'm just not one of them. I am not a fan of like a glitter, especially not if it needs me to like use a glitter glue. I don't want to go near it. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the texture. I don't want to exfoliate my eyelids, you know? So that shade's not for me. The other shade I'm not a big fan of is Gold Standards. That's this sort of light champagne gold on the top row. That one, which I used in shade 2, I don't know if it was that noticeable on camera, but it's not very impactful. It's quite near as far as the impact. It's hard to see because my entire hand is covered in glitter, so it's a little misleading because I did so many swatches already. It's swatched fine, but on the lid it's not got that much base. It's kind of sheer and the impact is just not there, but it's so crumbly. It kind of struggles to adhere to the lid, and there was so much fallout. It made such a mess for what reason? You know, because there wasn't that much impact from it. So I feel like those 2 shadows for me personally are duds. That's really rude. I take that back. They're not for me. I don't love them, is what I'm saying. They were the 2 shadows that I kind of would say I had issues with in the palette. These 2 shades, which are the Trio Chromes, they're so interesting. They're very creamy, and as you could probably see when I used them in look 3, I started off with a brush and then I swapped to a finger. I don't really like using a finger to apply shadows because you lose some of the precision and the control over like the placement with like a giant sausage finger as I am blessed with. I just can't be as precise with that. I can't really see what I'm doing because my whole hand is in the way. When my finger is, you know, trying to apply the product, I can't really see what I'm doing so well. I don't really like not being able to control the product as well as I can with a brush, but undoubtedly they apply significantly wildly better, as in far more impact with a finger. They're kind of like putty-ish, you know, you can push and they sort of move around. So if you're using a brush, it's hard to get the product even. You almost sort of need to massage it into the lid to get the full effect, because it needs almost like mixing together, which with a finger you can do really easily. So 100% recommend using a finger for those 2 shades if you can tolerate it, which rarely I can. I was very pleasantly surprised, I would say, by Aurora, because in the palette, she looks so quiet and demure. She's just sitting there. She's very demure, very mindful. When you compare her to some of these other shadows, you think, that's going to be very soft, very subtle, very blah. But on the lid, absolutely stunning. I was really pleasantly surprised. And even in the swatches, she doesn't do herself justice. She looks nice, she looks pretty, sure. On the lid, I was shook to my core. I did not see it coming. It's beautiful, a gorgeous shadow. Now, overall, I like this colour story very much. I think it's one we don't have a huge amount of on the market, so it does something that is kind of different to anything else in my collection, because yes, it's cool tone, but it's also quite sort of pinky cool tones, which I really like. That's kind of my preference, as opposed to being greys and blues all over, you know, like something like the Xenon palette. So I really like this color story. It's cool in a wearable way for me, you know. I don't have to feel like it's New Year's Eve for me to use this. I would use this day to day. You can absolutely get everyday looks as well as something very intense and impactful. I do feel like we've got a few spare mattes. I think 11 out of 18. I would probably have liked a couple more shimmers or satins or something in there. But I will say there's none that are really super similar to each other, so I think they're fair. Cold Plunge and Oneself, to me, neither of those really showed up a lot. For sure, I could use Cold Plunge to set my lid, or as a sort of very subtle, very close to my skin tone sort of lid shade. I feel like, if anything, my criticism of the mattes would be that we have sort of we've got some really deep mattes and then some very light mattes. And I feel like we could have used a couple more in the middle. For me, I feel like your choices are either barely showing up on my skin tone or very rich and have to use a light hand to be careful with. I would have liked a couple more that are sort of middle ground shades. I'm not the biggest fan of Huda's matte formula. I find it slightly hard to get a really smooth blend. Blending is not my strong point, I say it every time, but I really felt like in all three of these looks, there were harsh lines left, no matter how much I blended until my arm was aching. I feel like it still was imperfect, and I was trying my best. And I'm not a professional, I'm not skilled necessarily with eyeshadow. I try my best, but I'm not a professional, and I do find her mattes trickier to blend than, say, Natasha Denona's, Pat McGrath's, Charlotte Tilbury's, Lisa Eldridge's. These, for sure, I don't like as much as those other brands when it comes to the mattes. But I love the colour story. The shimmers are gorgeous. You get a lot of fallout across the board, not from the mattes, but all of the shimmer formulas in here. I was getting, apart from actually, I will say Aurora. Sorry, I don't mean to drag you down with the others. But every other shimmer shade in here, it was raining, pouring. Cats and dogs, in fact, all over my cheeks, everywhere. It was flying about, a lot of fallout, but I was happy with all three looks that I got. I love the shimmers, they're very impactful. I like this packaging. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's quite pretty and I quite like it. It has got very fingerprinty, I just noticed. And I didn't think it would. It doesn't look like it would get fingerprinty, but it definitely has. It feels nice and sturdy and weighty in the hand. I love that it stands up by itself. It's got a nice big high quality mirror, so lots going for it. Is she perfect? No, I think, like I said, there are a couple of shadows in there that I don't love. I feel like the mattes could be better, but overall this is a really nice, slightly different to everything else that we've got as far as the colour story, really wearable, fun, pretty palette that a lot of people I think will get a lot of enjoyment out of. I also think it's a really good price point, especially if you're going to get 20% off at Sephora. For 18 shadows, I think that's actually a really good deal at this price point, and obviously much more affordable than a Pat McGrath palette. So there's pros and cons. Is it perfect? Not for me, but is it good, solid palette? I think it absolutely is. And if you're drawn to this color story, I think it's actually quite surprising how it looks on the lid. It's not too harsh, it's not too scary, it's not so cool that, you know, it feels like unwearable. I feel like it hits a nice sweet spot between something different and wearability. It's right in there. She's absolutely nailed it. So there you have it. Those are all of my thoughts on my first three looks with this Icy Nude palette from Huda Beauty. I'd love you to tell me how you got on with it, if you feel differently to me. Do you love the glitter in this palette? Are you really happy it's in there? Or like me, do you feel like it's a waste of a pan that you will never go near as long as you live? Please let me know all of your thoughts on this palette in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.